Hello, today we're going to have a look at in details the rules of this brilliant game that I really like. It's called Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. Now this is it has some mature content, so recommended for ages 17 plus. There are a bit of swear words, etc., and sexual innuendos within the game itself, mainly on the cards, so be aware of that. Now, if anybody has seen this series, which is obviously based on Spartacus, the rebellious gladiator, you'll realise that it's not about Spartacus himself as such. It's more about the owners of the ludus and his kind of competitors and his adversaries, and so the struggles of Batiatus, who owns the ludus, and how he gets to try and become more popular and successful. Now, there are a couple of expansion kits to this game. This is one of them, the Shadow of Death, and this is basically taken from the Series 1, Episode 6, I think it is, where they have to defeat Theocles in a main battle, which you'll see Spartacus and Crixus fight. Very exciting against this kind of formidable foe that's never been beaten. Anyway, but we'll just start on the basic game and see how we get on. In your kit you get a lot of intrigue cards, which I'll explain later, a lot of market cards, the board itself, which is actually used for the fights, and there's ways of betting on these fights by your player. You have a lot of dice, red meaning for attack for the gladiators, blue for the speed, and black for the defense, but again I shall explain that later. The actual character cards themselves, you get Tullius, Batiatus, Glaber, and Salonius. Now I've set up 3 characters as a starter, as they all own assets at the start of the game, which you have to try and increase and use to win the game. So for Salonius, for instance, he starts off with 3 assets of 2 gladiators, 2 slaves, and 1 guard. All I'll explain later. So there's his 2 starting slaves, there's his 2 starting gladiators, and there's his 1 guard. Now for Glaber, by the way, Salonius has more money because he's a bit more richer than Batiatus, if you remember the series. He gets 12 gold. That's his starter. So for Glaber, he gets 10 gold, he gets 2 slaves, no gladiators, because obviously he's not in charge of a ludus, and then he has 3 guards, because obviously he's a centurion, so he gets a lot of soldiers to look after him. And finally, you get Batiatus, which is 3 gladiators, because he owns the big ludus, 1 slave, 10 gold, and 2 guards. Now, I'm only showing you those 3, but there is also Tullius as well, one of his Batiatus' adversaries. He's got 2 gladiators, 3 slaves, and 1 guard, and 9 gold. Now, they all have a treasury, which is all the gold goes into, which must be shown at all time. And they also have special rules, which you can use as I will tell you later. So to start the game, you set up the characters as I have. All the slaves and gladiators that can use are white rimmed for the starter set. Then obviously later on you gain more slaves and more gladiators which are stronger or have more abilities, and these are marked without the white rim. So you can only choose the white rim ones to start with. And how we did that for us was basically collect all the starting slaves together, and then you just randomly take them out so you don't see them to start with, and then put them into your player slots, and that's what you start with, same as gladiators. At the start of the game, somebody has to be the host. We just threw the dice the highest, and whoever wins on the highest dice becomes the host. More said on the host later, but basically the host goes first and can choose certain things, so it is handy to have that. Now, the idea of the game is to win by getting 12 intrigue points. Now, for a quick game, you can start on 7 and work up to 12. For a standard game, you start on 4 and move to 12. We normally start from 1, which is the advanced game. And to be honest, there's no difference in the rules. It just takes you longer to get there. Intrigue and how you gain those points, because they can go up and down depending on what people do to you and your results in the arena with your gladiators. It'll all be explained a bit later. Now, as for most games, there's a turn system. Basically, what you have to do first is upkeep, which is all done together at the same simultaneously. Do all at the same time, and then based on if you're the host, and then work clockwise or anti-clockwise, depending on what you choose, you do the next thing, which is intrigue phase. So host will do his intrigue, and then it will go to the next player, and then the player after that. And then there's the market phase, which everybody joins in bidding for gladiators or assets or weapons, slaves, depending on what comes out of the market pack. And then the arena phase. Now, this is where you have a fight in the arena, where the host can invite your player to put forward a gladiator into the arena. Now, you can refuse to, but then you can lose intrigue for not doing that. And if you win, if you do accept and your gladiator wins, you actually win intrigue. That's one point I get. That's one way of getting intrigue. Obviously, on the first turn, there is no upkeep because nothing has happened. But let's say we're in the second turn, and first thing you need to do is refresh cards. So if you've used certain cards during the previous turn, it's time to refresh them. So in this case, I've used a slave for whatever reason, so I can turn it back up to refreshed. Same with a gladiator, refresh. And then after all cards are refreshed, you now to heal the injuries. Now, to heal an injury, so let's say a gladiator has been injured in the arena, it's your chance to bring him back to full health. Now, to do that, you throw a dice. On a 4, 5, 6, he's back to normal, completely healed. On a 2 and a 3, he stays injured, is still recovering, and 1, he's died from his wound. So let's just throw the dice and see what happens. 2. So he stays injured, which means I can't use him next round. And the last part of the upkeep stage is actually balancing the all ledgers. So basically, you get 1 gold for every slave you own from the bank, and for every gladiator you have to give to the bank, and that's basically for paying for their training and food, etc., etc. So in this case, let's say Batiatus, he's got 1 slave. Now, although he has 3 slaves on the books, 1's injured, so you only count the 2 that are alive and well. So in which case, so that's 1 minus 2, so he owes the bank 1 gold, so that would come out of his treasury. Now, you'll see how important the treasury is later on when it comes to the market. Now, let's say he didn't have any money to pay for those slaves. He would have to give up one of his slaves and put it into the discard pile because you can't afford the upkeep on him. So always good to keep a lot of money. Now, the more slaves you earn, obviously the more money you're going to gain from the bank to offset the cost of the gladiators. So just bear that in mind. Next stage is the intrigue phase. This is where you draw cards from the deck. You can play your schemes, cash in the cards, and then use your house special rules and asset abilities. So each player would take 3 cards from the intrigue pile. I'm going to take 3 for one person. I'm not going to do all of them for now, just for this demonstration. And then you get 3 cards. Now, these cards will tell you what you can use them for and what to do. And some of them will say when you can use them and when you can't. At the end of the turn, at the end of one full turn, you're not allowed to have more than 3 if you're only at intrigue levels 1 to 3. Hand size can't be more than 4. between 4, 5 and 6. Hand size 5, 7, 8, 9, and hand size 6 on 10, 11, 12. So obviously the higher you are, the more influence you have in the community, the more hand size you can have. But as a rule, starting on 1, we're only allowed 3 cards each. Now, some of these cards you'll see on the top left corner, it tells you the level you need to be to use the card. So that one, at the moment, because we're all at level 1, that one is totally useless to me. So I can sell it for 2 coin because that's the price on the bottom left corner. If you have level 4 and you can use it, you can target another Dominus or another player, and they may exhaust any 3 of their slaves, gladiators or guards, to gain 1 influence. Now, you could do that on yourself if you've got enough slaves, or you could give it to another Dominus to pay, where they have to get rid of some gladiators and slaves or guards. Now, they might want to do that to gain influence, but they may not want to. If they don't want to, they can use a guard. So let's say Batiatus wants to put this, let's say he's level 6 and he wants to push this card onto Glaber. This one says that the target Dominus must pay bank 5 gold or all of their gold, or whichever is less. Now that's quite a devastating card, because you'll soon find that gold is an integral part of buying more better gladiators to fight in the arena, which obviously gives you influence at the long run. So I try and good to keep hold of your gold, and obviously if you can't afford weapons or gladiators, you're going to find it very difficult to get that intrigue without fighting battles. That makes it more difficult. So let's say he plays that card on Glaber. Now, as you can see, Glaber has 3 guards, so he can foil that with a reaction. Now, to do that, you'd say, I'm going to use a guard to try and foil that scheme. And he'll throw the dice. On a 4, 5, 6, he foils the scheme. On a 1, 2, 3, he has to pay 3. So he's failed. So that now is discarded, thank God. Now he can carry on doing this until he actually foils the scheme. 3, he's failed again. That's 2 guards down. So if he carried on doing it, you could end up with no guards at all, which is a dangerous place again to be in. So there is that way of doing it, which is costly, but again, if you're lucky, you could do it on the first card, and that scheme gets discarded and nothing happens. There are an alternative way, and that are within those intrigue cards, you get reaction cards. So depending on how devastating the scheme was put against you, you can play these to, instead of using a guard, to take the scheme away. So on this one, you have to pay another Dominus 3 gold and then foil that scheme that was aimed at you. Now, most of the reaction cards are for when a scheme is targeted on you, but there are a few reaction cards in the pack where you can foil any scheme. So if you think a scheme that's been pushed onto another player, or Dominus as they call it here, and you don't want that to happen for whatever political reason you want, you can foil their scheme as well to help them out. And you never know, they may benefit you later on. So there is a bit of backstabbing and also trying to make allies within this game as well. As I said before, that if you've got more than cards in your hand than you're allowed because of your intrigue level, then you will have to sell those off. So again, as I said, all those intrigue cards have a coin value at the bottom, so you could sell that and get 2 coin. Part of the intrigue phase, again, you start off with the host, and then you do it go clockwise or anti-clockwise, whatever you choose for each player afterwards. But the third part of the intrigue phase is the special house rules. Now, so Batiatus has special rules. And then, so what he can do, he can either exhaust 2 gladiators to gain 2 gold. So to exhaust them, you would just turn them and make them not available, which means they can't go into a fight if they get chosen for a battle. Now, This can be very dangerous as well because you haven't got any gladiators and the host asks you to put a gladiator into the arena. If you refuse, you get -1 on your intrigue, which is obviously against the objective. Alternatively, if you don't want to lose an influence, you would have to put in the slave. Now, as you'll see, all the slaves are all at 1. Oh, these are the starting slaves, but they're all very low dice compared to what you get with the gladiators, and that will come into effect when fighting in the arena. So bear in mind, you're going to lose a slave normally, unless you're very, 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 very lucky. The other one that Batiatus has got, so that's exhausting, which is just turn the card over, so they're still an asset to yours, and you can refresh them in the next turn. Or let's just say he's at 11, he wants one more influence point to win the game. He could discard and actually take away 3 gladiators. They have to be alive, they can't be injured or dead. So if they're injured, you can't use them, or exhausted, you can't use them. But if they're alive, not exhausted, you can discard 3 gladiators and get that extra influence, which helps you win the game. Each player has their own special rules. Glaber, Legionnaire, exhaust 3 guards and draw 1 intrigue card, so he can gain an extra intrigue card if he needs to. Or discard 3 guards for 1 influence, again, 1 on top there. And Salonius, bribes and pandering, pay X gold to reduce any scheme's required influence by X. So he can kind of bribe people from not using the scheme against him, which is very handy. Or he can discard 1 gladiator, 1 slave and 1 guard to gain an influence. Again, very handy. Tellius has his own special rules. Exhaust 3 slaves, discard up to 3 cards, replace with 3 new intrigue cards, and discard 3 slaves to gain 1 influence. So there's always a way of gaining an influence, but you are kind of getting rid of some assets, so be aware of that. Probably not a good idea to use at the start of the game. The next phase is the market phase. Now this is an exciting phase. First of all, it's the open market. So this is where you can trade with your fellow players. So if you want to sell a slave or sell a gladiator, whether they're starting slave or an experienced gladiator, this is the time to do it. You can do this by swapping assets, or you can sell them for a value. It's entirely up to you, but that's your negotiations between all the 3 or 4 players you have. After the open market phase, you can also sell to the bank, and that's basically you take the value of the asset. In this case, the starting gladiator is worth 2. You'll find that like this gladiator here is worth 4. So you can sell guards, slaves and gladiators to the bank for that monetary value, just to put money into the treasury to help you buy more or better gladiators, or more equipment for the gladiators, or more slaves if you're trying to get more income into your faction. Now the exciting part of the auction part is trying to get more slaves, weapons or gladiators from the market. So depending on how many players you are playing with, maybe it's 3 or 4, or if you've got the expansion kits, you can do 5 or 6. You base the amount of cards drawn 1 by 1 for how many players there are. So we've got 3 players, so you would draw 3 market cards. So you take the first card first. You don't want to know what the second and third are, because you start saving your money for those if they're better. So you would turn over the first one, and this one is a gladiator. Now this is Agron, if you remember from the series, Agron. Now you'll see the first thing is that his dice roll, his dice 3 attack, 4 defense, 3 speed, is better than some of the other gladiators, especially the starter ones, which is like 3, 1 and 3. So already he has an advantage, and we'll come across that when we do the fighting a bit later. You'll also find that Agron has a special rule, and most of the better gladiators have. Now this one is a counterattack. Defensive triples causes 1 auto wound to attacker. So therefore, during the fight scene, which we'll do later, he's got 4 defensive dice. So if he throws the 4 dice and the 3 of those end up being 2s, he automatically makes a wound on his opposing gladiator. Very handy. So for bidding for this gladiator, what you would do is each player takes their handful of treasure or coins from their treasury and put it in their left hand underneath the table. And then you take out what you want or expect to pay or want to pay for that particular asset, in this case, Agron. So you would hold your fist out with the coins, and all 3 of you or 4 of you, whoever amount playing, would do it. And then when everyone's ready, go 1, 2, 3, and expose what you're willing to pay. The winning with a person or player or doctore, whatever you want to call them. Sorry, not dominus, not doctore. Has the most coin, has won that asset. That money goes into the bank, and he gains Agron as a new gladiator in his ludus. Now, the people who failed to win that particular bid puts their money back in the treasury and can be used on the next auction. Let's say for instance, that 2 players have the same amount of coin for that first bid. They both bid 5 coin. You would put that to one side because that's part of the bid, and then they would do the same again for a second bid. For only those players who had the most coins, equal coins, can go in. So who didn't bid the 5 coins, so like if they bid 3 or 4 coins, they are not allowed to go in the second bid. So the second bid is between the players left over who put the 5 in. They would do the same again, turn over at the same time, and whoever's got the most coin wins that bid. So they would put the 5 and the 2 together, and they would pay 7 for Agron. If no one puts any coin in, if they think 5 was enough for him and they both put 0 in, then it's a failed auction and he goes into the discard pile and no one has won him. So all those 5 and the 2 coins are put back into their treasury, ready for the next auction. So then for the second auction, you do the same again, turn over. And in this case, it's a slave, and this time it's Navia. And her special rule is chaste. She counts as 2 slaves. Now, if you remember what I said at the start of the game, slaves generate income. So although you're paying for 1 slave here, again by auction, so you do the same thing by the way bidding, every time you're doing your upkeep, she's worth 2 slaves. So you'll get 2 gold for her when doing the upkeep stage. So bear that in mind. Obviously, there are other rules for slaves and other rules for gladiators. They're just particular for that particular character within those slaves. So you do the same routine again. And for the last card, because there's 3 of us playing on this occasion, this one is a weapon. Now, we'll go into the weapons and what they mean, the rules mean. But you can attach these weapons into your assets section. And for instance, this is a sword. You may re-roll 1 attack dice when attacking. So that will come in handy when you're actually fighting a combatant within the arena. Again, we'll come across that later. So whoever wins that bid for that weapon, you put in your assets underneath. And then when you fight a battle, anybody who's fighting that battle in the arena can choose that weapon or any other weapons or armor they have within their itinerary, within their stock. So when all the bids have done for the market, the last thing to bid for is for the host. Now this is not an asset as such, but it is very, very important because whoever has this host card virtually chooses who goes into the arena to the fight. Now this could be very intimidating. You can put yourself in as the host into the arena if you know you've got a big gladiator like Crixus or Spartacus, and you know the other people have only got starting slaves. Or you could put 2 opposing gladiators in from other teams if they agree to go into it, and if they don't want to go into it, then they can lose influence. It's very powerful. Again, you do the same thing of how to bid, and whoever wins that bid becomes the host, which we'll see happen in the next section of the arena phase. Now we move on to the arena phase. Now, as I said before, it's important to know that the host, as I said, they are quite powerful. They can potentially choose who goes into the arena, but they also gain an influence at the start of the phase. So if you are the host after you've bid to win the host, you automatically go one up on your influence. So that's how powerful that is straight away. Again, if you've got coin to buy to be the host, it's powerful. Now it's the host's job to find 2 combatants for the arena to fight the battle. Again, he can choose either himself or others, and he can choose them in any other at all. So you could see Glaber there has no gladiators, so you could ask him first. And if Glaber refuses to put a combatant in, and I say combatant, it doesn't have to be a gladiator, as I said, it could be a slave or a gladiator. Now, he hasn't got any gladiators, so he would have to put a slave in. So he can refuse, because the chances are of him winning the battle with just a slave is going to be remote, which means he will lose that slave and therefore lose income. So he may just want to say, no, I don't want to fight, and go down to 3, because you lose an influence for refusing to go into the arena. So he would then go on to ask the next player until he finds 2 combatants. Now, at any stage, you can say, I'm putting myself in first, and then ask others and see if they all refuse. Or you can ask any of the players at any random time. So let's say this one says, yes, I will go into the arena. I've only got a starting gladiator, but he will go in. So he puts in a gladiator which has got 3 attack, 2 defense, and 2 speed. So the host says, well, I will actually put in my own gladiator because I have Agron and he's a stronger gladiator, so I'm going to put him in. So all of a sudden, you have 2 gladiators or 2 combatants that are going into the arena. Now, at this point, the host can say, I am going, or the player can say, if they have any weapons, they can go into the arena as well. So let's say that Agron has a sword. So this is going to be a quite unbalanced game, because you've got a stronger gladiator with a weapon against a starting gladiator with no weapons or armor. So it's going to be quite one-sided, I'm guessing. And with that one-sidedness, before the actual battle takes place, any player can bet on the results. Now, there are a couple of ways. There's decapitation, and you get wager 2-1. There's just pays for a victory for Gladiator 1. Victory on is Gladiator 2. So he places a bet against his own gladiator because it's classed as bad. It's not good for morale. But if he thinks his gladiator is going to be injured or decapitated, he could put a bet on that. So Sloanis will put, in this occasion, 2 gold to be gladiator to be injured, and we'll find out how they're decapitated and injured, or just won or lost in the next phase. So after everyone's made their bets and their markers are down for each bet they've put on, the battle begins. So the gladiators are set up on their relative space. So you've got Gladiator 1, which would be the gladiator who is chosen first to go into the arena. And then you've got Gladiator 2, is the second combatant that was told to go into the arena. The dice are set up for starter Gladiator 1, which was 3 attack, 2 defense, and 2 speed. And then for Agron, the second gladiator, which was 3 attack, 4 defense, and 3 speed. So as you can see, Agron is way stronger than the starting gladiator, and he has a sword. So chances are this starting gladiator is not going to last. First thing first is initiative. Now, as I said, the blue dice are speed, which has 2 attributes. One is for initiative, and second, how many they can move on the board. So they both throw initiative to start with. Starting gladiator gets 8, not bad. Agron gets, wow, good dice roll, 17. So he goes first. So basically, he can move 3. His speed dice is 3. He can move 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. Now, if he moved the full distance, you could tell that the gladiator with 2 dice could now step in and attack, which Agron probably wouldn't want to do. So he would probably not move the full 3 spaces. He doesn't have to. He can move just the 2. And then the starting gladiator would either run away with his 2 or move, try and get closer. Now, let's just say Agron's a bit silly and moves 3 straight away. It would now be, he has no throwing weapons, so he can't do any attacks. So, because there are spears and javelins that you can throw. So let's go to the next guy's turn, which is the starting gladiator. So he can move 2. Now, because he's moved in, he's now in adjoining Agron, so he can now attack. First of all, the attacker will throw his attack dice. So the starting gladiator has 3, so he throws 3 dice. He gets a 6, a 3, and a 1. So then Agron will throw his dice. At the moment, he has 4 defensive dice. So he will throw, and he has a 4, a 2, a 3, and a 1. So you then put him in ascending order, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you put them against the attacking dice. Now, any attacking dice is over the defending dice is a wound. So there's 1 wound there. The defense one there is defended because he's only got a 1. And this one's a draw. Now the draws always go to the defense, so nothing happened there. So there's only 1 wound. So what happens now is that Agron needs to choose a dice to get rid of. Now, Agron is going to get rid of one of his defense because he has 4. So he still has 3 matching dice against the 3 attacking dice of his combatant. So he could have chosen speed. That means his initiative would probably be less. But so he is just taking out his defense. So the idea is to get rid of as many dice as possible down to 3. And we'll go through the result of the combat in a second. So let's say, all right, now that one's been go, it's another round, and initiative goes again. Now he's got to take away 3 dice, and to win the combat, you have to get at least one of these dice pools down to 0. Now, because he's got to lose 3 dice, unfortunately, he's lost 3. So he's got 1 dice pool left. The other 2 have gone. So that's the fight over, as we all knew that the Agron was going to win that one. So the results are calculated by victory, injury, or decapitation, which is where the betting comes in. So decapitation would be if all the dice had gone. You had no dice left. That means decapitated. So whoever bet on decapitated would have won that and taken their money. That's gone to the bank because he lost it. It wasn't decapitated. He's still got 1 left. If you have 1 dice left, he's injured. Or if there's 2 dice pools gone, he is injured, and therefore you put an injured sticker on, like on him, and he turned upside down, like we said earlier. And if he had 1 dice left or 1 pool down, he's lost the fight, but no injury and no decapitation. So in this case, this is where you turn to the host, again being very powerful. The host can either thumbs up that combatant to stay alive, and he's been brought back in the ludus, or he can just kill him with a thumbs down. Now, this is a nice time to bribe the host if you want, by giving him an asset or money to make him a thumbs up. Or if it's just a starting gladiator and you've got loads, or you've got better gladiators, just say sod it, let him just put a thumbs down and kill him. There may be reasons he wants to keep him alive, but yeah, that is another powerful use of the host. Now, after winning that, Agron would get a favour token. Now, a favour token means he's won. He's not a champion yet, but he has favour amongst the crowd. The crowd has seen a winning gladiator, and they're pleased to see him in future bouts. Also, for winning that, the owner of that ludus or that gladiator would gain an influence. Again, another way of gaining the influence. Now, let's say on occasion Agron came up against a stronger combatant and he lost. He wasn't injured, he wasn't decapitated, he was just lost the fight. Now, there's two things with a gladiator for favour. If the host has asked that ludus to put a gladiator in the arena and he puts Agron in, he has a favour token. So he would get 2 coin from the bank for saying thank you for putting your favoured gladiator into the arena. So you get 2 coin to your treasury straight away. And the second strength is that the host, if Agron lost the fight and the host wanted to thumbs down him to kill him off, the actual host would lose an influence. And that's because the crowd loves the gladiator and don't like the host for doing that, so you lose influence. So it's always good to win fights. Again, the same with another favour, you would get 4 coin for putting him in the arena, and yet again the host would lose influence if he thumbs down him. Now let's say Agron's been in 3 or 4 fights, and on the 3rd fight he wins again. He becomes a champion. So you take rid of the favours and you get a champion. So again, you would get coin for putting him into the arena. But on this occasion, the host is not allowed to kill him off. He cannot thumbs down him because he's a champion. And the implications of thumbs down on a champion is beyond... Well, he wouldn't be allowed. He would lose all influence whatsoever. So if you have a champion gladiator... The only way to get rid of a champion gladiator is by defeating him in the arena. The host cannot thumbs down him. Bear that in mind. So the arena phase, you sort out the wages. Whoever won their decapitation or victory injury wager gets their money from the treasury from the bank and puts back into the treasury. If they lost the bets, they go back into the bank, and that's game over. And then you start the whole sequence again. Upkeep. Intrigue, and so forth. Auction and then combat, and that's the base of the game. Now, again, the idea is, as I said before, it's to get your influence up to 12 to win the game and end the turn on that. So you can't until that arena phase is finished on that last phase of each turn. If you've got an influence of 12, you've won the game. Now, for the dynamics of the game, it can be a bit backstabbing. It can be advantageous to have some allies within players to a degree, but knowing that you're going to have to backstab them at the end of the game if you want to win the game. Now, for the dynamics, we found that 4 players is good. But 3 players, if one player gets ahead quite a lot, you do find that the other 2 players will start ganging up against you, not putting you in the arena, or using their intrigue for their benefits and targeting you. So just bear that in mind on a 3-player or an odd-player game. We find this game absolutely amazing. We've had so many laughs and arguments, but mainly laughs. it's just a great game, and it's so much based on the series. If you've watched the series, then you will love the game, because it is literally based on the intrigue and the influence of characters, not on just the fighting abilities of the gladiators, obviously, but obviously that does come into it. Yeah, I mean, you get all the player cards, you get plenty of playing cards, you get the board, plenty of dice, and then you get figures. Now the figures come unpainted. They are plastic. I have painted mine and put some kind of sand and blood on the bases. I don't know how good you can see that. I've got Theocles, because obviously I bought the expansion sets. And I think you also get Crixus in the expansion set. And Spartacus as well. Now it comes to the weapons, and that you can also have double weapons, or you can have a shield and a weapon. Some of them are javelins or spears, so they have a effect. You can throw a spear and exhaust it. You can only use it once, obviously, because you've thrown it. So there are some dynamics within the combat as well. There's tridents, there's nets to slow combatants down. Yeah, it's a real fun game. We never get bored of it. We play it very often. And with the expansion kits, you get a couple of extra players, so you can have like 6 playing, and they all have their own special rules, and again, changing the dynamics slightly. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, if you want to ask any questions on it, please put it in the comments. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.